Okay, so I know we're only a month into the new year, but I just saw what I think is the best film of 2023 so far. Let's talk about it. Welcome to the channel, everyone. Today we're going to discuss the new film by Brandon Cronenberg called Infinity Pool. The story begins with a married couple named James and M. Foster, played by Alexander Skarsgård and Cleopatra Coleman, on vacation at a resort in a fictional country. James is an author desperately looking for inspiration. We learn that his one and only book was published 6 years earlier and was a complete failure. While at the resort, James meets an alluring young woman named Gabby Bauer, played by Mia Goth, who claims to be a huge fan of his book. You get the sense that this is the first person to ever say anything positive at all about James's book, and so he's immediately taken in by Gabby and her husband Albin. That night, the two couples have dinner together, and the next day they borrow a car and head out on a day trip, despite the warnings of how dangerous the country can be for tourists once they get outside the confines of the all-inclusive resort. And as luck would have it, that night, on their way back to the resort, an intoxicated James hits and kills a local man with the car. The next morning, James and M are taken to the police station, where James is informed that the punishment for his crime is execution, to be carried out by the eldest son of his victim, in this case, a 13-year-old boy. And this is where the central conceit of the film is introduced. This third world country has somehow perfected the process of human cloning, and James is given a choice. He can either accept his fate and be executed, or for a sizable fee, he can pay to have himself cloned, and his double can take his place. The only stipulation is that he and his wife have to watch as his double is executed. Now here I expected James to wrestle with the moral dilemma that such a decision poses, but after a brief moment of confusion, James is like, yeah, the clone thing, let's do that. So he signs a few forms, and a few moments later he's shown withdrawing a large amount of cash from an ATM located inside the prison. Now I do have to say, I think the film could have done a better job of playing up the horrors of the predicament that James has found himself in. The fear of being imprisoned in a foreign country is one that anyone who travels can relate to. James has landed himself in a foreign jail. He's committed a grievous crime for which the punishment is death. And before the terror of that situation has even had a chance to sink in, he's offered this lifeline, the chance to have his clone killed in his place. So I thought the film missed a real chance to build some tension there, but that's a minor gripe. One of the things I enjoyed about the film is that it didn't go down the obvious path of exploring the moral and ethical implications of James's decision. That's the route I expected the film to take, and this wouldn't be the last time the film veered one way when I expected it to go another. Now we're told that the clone will have all of the same memories as James, and so not only will he believe that he is James, but that he is also guilty of the crimes for which he's being punished. But does that make it okay? The film could have gone down that road and examined these questions, but I think Cronenberg wisely realizes that it's really not a question worth asking. Of course, having someone else suffer the consequences of our crimes is wrong, even if that someone is a photocopy of ourselves. And so why should the movie get bogged down in these moral and ethical dilemmas? To have the character wrestle with this decision would be to ask us where we stand and how we feel about it, but this isn't really the story that Cronenberg wants to tell, so why muddy the waters? Another way in which the film defies expectations is to downplay any mystery surrounding whether the James we see in the second half of the film is the original James or the clone. That's certainly a path the film could have gone down, but again, that's not the story that Cronenberg wants to tell. As if anticipating that the audience will go there, a character at one point addresses the issue and basically says, whether you're the clone or the original, what's the difference? You think you're you. And so, what does it even matter? Now, what I've given you so far is really just the setup for the story, and I really hate to give too much more away. There's so much more that happens after James is released from prison, and a lot of it is just batshit crazy, and I loved it. What I will say is that James is not the first foreign vacationer to discover this human cloning get-out-of-jail-free loophole. Ultimately, the film seems to be an allegory for how people with power, privilege, and money can often move through life with little or no consequences for their actions. But one of the things I appreciated most about the film is that it doesn't come off as a message film. It doesn't take sides or pass judgment. There's no moralizing. It just tells the story it wants to tell and doesn't try to tell you how you should think or feel about it. Brandon Cronenberg has now made 3 films. I didn't see the first, which was called Antiviral, which came out way back in 2012, but I did see 2020's Possessor, which I thought was very good. In a way, Infinity Pool could be seen as a companion piece to that film. Possessor was about a corporate assassin who had the ability to enter people's minds like a parasite, controlling their bodies to carry out her executions. So in that film, you had 2 people merging together as one to basically get away with murder, whereas in Infinity Pool, one person could be duplicated to, again, get away with murder. What both of these films demonstrate is a young filmmaker in complete control of his craft. Cronenberg is a confident and bold director with an exciting visual style that, to be sure, can be a little heavy-handed and over the top at times, but here is a filmmaker who is not afraid to go for it. When you go into one of his films, you're likely to see some things you've never seen on screen before, whether in terms of graphic violence or sexuality, or both. He does not hold back. And that brings me to the 2 central performances in this film. Alexander Skarsgård and Mia Goth are the perfect actors to help Cronenberg realize his vision. Both are fantastic here, completely unafraid to push the envelope and do everything the film asks of them. Mia Goth in particular. The character she plays here is so delightfully unhinged that you simply cannot take your eyes off of her whenever she's on the screen. And what a moment she's having after her performances last year in both X and Pearl, and now Infinity Pool. She's quickly becoming one of my favorite actors to watch. Now, Infinity Pool is billed as a sci-fi horror film, and I'm sure there are going to be some people who debate whether it's really either of those things. As far as the science fiction goes, yes, there is the human cloning aspect, but that's not really what the movie's about. The cloning is just an entryway into the story that Cronenberg is trying to tell. And it's not really a horror film in the traditional sense, but the film does feature unflinching violence and disturbing imagery. Brandon Cronenberg is the son of David Cronenberg, after all, and Infinity Pool has its fair share of the body horror that has become synonymous with the family name. So if you're a big sci-fi or horror fan, you might find the film a bit lacking on one or both of those accounts. But if you're looking for a movie that takes you on one hell of a thrill ride and shows you some things that you might not have seen before, Infinity Pool is definitely worth diving into. I give it 3.5 out of 4 stars. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you like this review, please leave a comment below and don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a great day.